This initiative began a couple of years ago when I was approached by several Chinese educators exploring the possibility of providing within China an educational experience for Chinese boys and girls that would prepare them for admission to the world's finest universities. That's how it began. It began with a question, with an idea. And they invited me to participate in creating the vision for such a school. And 2 years later, we're at the threshold of implementing this school in Keystone Academy. Well, Keystone, I have a philosophy as to what the finest schools in the world should practice, should represent. And it involves 5 principles. One is the school should be committed to academic rigor and the achievement of academic excellence. Second, the school should be committed to shaping the character of young men and young women. Often parents value that more than they do the formal education. Third, prestigious schools have a way of teaching young people how to form communities and preserve communities over time. Fourth, Keystone Academy and other prestigious schools should recognize that the physical lives of young men and young women and the spiritual lives of young men and young women deserve to be nurtured as well. And lastly, these schools, because of how much resources they demand from society and from parents, these schools should be characterized by students who graduate with a sense of giving back to society. So those are 5 principles, I think, that will characterize Keystone as it's characterized a lot of the schools that are prestigious around the world. Well, over the course of the next 10 years, it's going to be our challenge and our opportunity to help this school develop and mature with the help of parents, students, faculty, and staff. We're going to pull together a world of educators and students, not only from within China, from around the world. And we hope that over the next decade, over the first decade of this school is going to mature and develop a culture of its own that's going to be recognized not only in China but abroad. 100 years from now, this school will be in the pantheon of the finest preparatory schools in the world, with the Andovers, with the Exeters, with the Renmins. This school will be in that pantheon of outstanding educational institutions. Keystone, many of the characteristics of Keystone you will find at other schools, both in China and abroad. I think you'd be hard-pressed to find all of the characteristics of Keystone. And among those characteristics are to provide young boys and young girls with an English language and Mandarin language instruction all the way through 12 years in a residential setting where half the students in the early years are going to be coming from their homes and half the students are going to be boarding with faculty in residence halls, in classrooms that are small and intimate, that require students to participate in their own learning, to actively learn, not just passively listen to what's being taught to them, that creates a culture of sharing, of collaboration, of exploration, in magnificent new facilities and an extraordinary world-class performing arts center, and in a setting that expects students to give back to society after they graduate. Service to society and service to the global community is an important, it will be an important part of the Keystone experience. And in that sense, Keystone is going to be unique. I think the single most important thing that I have been doing over the course of the last year and a half is identifying and beginning to work with the founding head of this school, Malcolm McKenzie. He's a man of extraordinary experience, having been the head of school on 3 continents: Africa, Europe, United States, North America, and now China. A constellation of teachers and administrators who have the kinds of experiences that are going to implement the vision of Keystone. Individuals who are immersed in bilingual education, world-class education, preparing young people for a global society, outstanding educators, both in the United States and in Asia, who are going to be coming together in July of 2013 to shape the final picture of this school before we begin to recruit and admit students. I'm the executive director of the ESA, or the 8 Schools Association, and as executive director and past headmaster of Choate Rosemary Hall, one of the 8 schools. I was headmaster of Choate Rosemary Hall for 20 years. But now as executive director, it's my job to keep this organization together. And I'm, if you will, the oil in the wheels, making sure that these professionals, these administrators, these faculty, these teachers are communicating with each other and sharing the kinds of things that they can share in order to improve the quality of teaching and learning at each of their schools and all of the schools together. Almost 50 years ago, the heads of a handful of schools in New England got together to have lunch and to talk about their common experience as principals of prestigious schools. It was a fellowship of sharing and communication and commiseration, if you will, that began several decades ago. It has recently emerged as a formal organization that not only provides an opportunity for the principals or heads of these schools to get together, but also for their faculty, for their department heads. It is now a fellowship that's beginning to affect all of these 8 schools, and each school contributes enormously to the benefit of all of the schools. It's our hope that we are going to have a partnership not only with that group of 8 schools, New England boarding schools, world-class schools, but also the world-class schools that exist in China and elsewhere in the world. We hope that Keystone is indeed going to be the keystone that brings together consortiums of other schools from all around the world. Why? Because we want our students to have the ability to connect with students at other schools on other continents so that they are learning together with them. We want the opportunity for our faculty and students to exchange with students from other schools from other continents around the world. If we are emerging as a global society, it's important for our students to begin to think globally and communicate globally, and having relationships not only here in Beijing with the prestigious schools that are here and schools elsewhere in China and in Asia, but also in the United States, in Africa, and in Europe. Those are the kinds of things I think that are going to contribute enormously to our children's education.